everyone. Welcome to the 12 Man Insight Podcast. My name is Mo, and I'm here with Tommy, who is a former college football scout and a diehard Seahawks fan. Tommy, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Doing well, Mo. Thank you for having me on the show here. Excited to get this thing going. Just ready to talk some Seahawks football and hopefully interact with the fans in the process.
All right, so man, let's get to it. Let's get to it right now. Let's talk about the Seahawks. So the Seahawks lost to the 49ers. Final score was 36-24. Geno Smith, 30 of 52, 57% completion percentage, 312 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kenneth Walker only had 14 carries for 32 yards, but he also had 8 receptions for another 37 yards. But when you calculate the total touches, it was maybe 20 touches, less than 60 yards. With receptions, Tyler Lockett led the team. He had 4 catches for 65 yards. DK Metcalf was a surprising one. 3 receptions on 11 targets for only 48 yards. So the Seahawks dropped 3-3. And so let's start with the big question of the week. And that is, can the Seahawks become a great football team? Tommy, your thoughts?
Can the Seahawks become a great football team? Not this year. I think this year we're kind of seeing who they are. It was a great start to the season. There's a lot of promise with how the defense was playing. It seemed like the offense was starting to get rolling. And I just think now that we're 6 weeks into the season, we're starting to see some holes they have on their roster. And teams are starting to figure that out on film, how they can expose those holes. On top of that, they've just been suffering through some injuries, and every team goes through it. So it's not a real excuse. It's a matter of creating depth. But I think we are starting to figure out who the Seahawks are this year. I think they're a good team, but they definitely have some holes that they're going to need to address for sure. On top of that, go ahead. Sorry, my fault.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Continue. On top of that, we're seeing the learning curve that our new coaching staff is going through as well. Mike McDonald, first year head coach, obviously, and then Ryan Grubb as well, the OC coming from the college ranks. And there's a massive difference between college defenses and NFL defenses, and I think we're kind of seeing him go through that learning curve as teams adjust due to film.
Yeah. What did you think about Geno's game, man? What did you think about Geno's game? A lot of people say he can't beat the 49ers or he can't, perform in big games. What did you think about his performance?
I was really disappointed. I'm really high on Geno. I think he's had a fantastic season. But I do think this past game against the 49ers was his worst of the season. Mm-hmm. There were times, it just felt like at times he was worried about Nick Bosa's presence. And It wasn't that Nick Bosa was getting – Nick Bosa was having a great game, of course. But there were times where Nick Bosa wasn't even in that pressure range, and he was still affected by his presence on the field.
Seeing ghosts?
And he was seeing ghosts. So it was definitely disappointing to see that. I mean, especially that first pick he had on that drive. I mean, I wouldn't say Bosa was really in his face there, and he felt his presence and overthrew the ball, which led to the first pick by Malik Mustafa there, and that it was kind of the rest was history. Saw it a couple times throughout the game after that.
Yeah, man, for me, one thing that really got me thinking about this question is a tweet from Bruce Irvin. So immediately after the game, Bruce Irvin, put out a tweet out there, and he said, it was a standard back in the Legion of Boom days. That's just not the case anymore. And, I really felt that tweet, Tommy, because, I think all great teams need great players to come out in the biggest moments. And there was a standard back in the day when Seahawks were the best team in the NFL, and that standard is not being met anymore. And reading Bruce's tweet got me thinking about I don't know if you remember that game, Tampa Bay versus us in Germany. Do you remember that game, Tom?
I do remember that game in Germany out there. Early morning.
Yeah. Early morning, 6:30 a.m. And Bruce Irvin, I remember Rashad White had a career year running over the Seahawks defense, and Bruce Irvin was on the sidelines, right? And he was just holding people accountable. He was letting people know what the standard was. And, you just don't see that anymore. And I think all great teams need that personality. They need that identity. And I look at the Seahawks sidelines, man. I look at the sidelines, especially during, times of adversity, and I see nothing. I see a dead personality. Yeah. I see people like not talking to each other. I see, DK Metcalf sitting by himself. I see Gino not like hyping up the team. I see a dead personality. And I want to get your reaction to this. Clip. This is from Jordan Babineau, and former Seahawks safety. And cut number 2, he talks about some of internal champions. And the question was asked. The question was, does he still believe in Mike Macdonald? And I want to get your reaction to this. Let's play cut number 2.
Just for any first-year head coach, even Coach Carroll, didn't have immediate success. It took a while to build personnel. It took a while to find the right internal champions in the locker room to, keep beating the drum of philosophy and helping, that spread throughout the rest of the team. Yeah. And even from the coaching staff, like many of the guys on the coaching staff, Mike Macdonald, hasn't worked with. And while they all are credible and they're all working hard, there's a lot of things to figure out collectively of the best path forward for, both the players and for the coaching staff. Just for any first year.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to that clip there, it's totally right though. It seems like it hasn't been figured out. And, I will give Mike Macdonald's staff some grace here, because if you look back at when Mike Macdonald got to Baltimore, last year's defense was obviously fantastic, but it didn't seem like things really got going in Baltimore defensively until they acquired Roquan Smith. Mm-hmm. And I think looking at this current roster, 2 things. One, it's not completely Mike Macdonald's roster that he created, he formed. Obviously he's got his pieces on there. Obviously the 2 linebackers he had a part in free agency. Byron Murphy was part of that draft. But I think we do have to give the staff and the front office some time to really create a roster that fits what Mike Macdonald wants to do, while we still have some Pete Carroll guys. And also with all the new players that we did add on the defense, the one thing I'm seeing right now is it doesn't look like they trust each other yet. And I hope that happens sooner than later. But sometimes that trust does develop over years, and so hopefully that our defensive backs and linebackers, front seven, all that can get on the same page here and learn to trust each other, because I do think they'll be able to play off of each other a lot better once that happens.
I agree with you, man. And, it got me thinking, this clip from Jordan Babineau got me thinking that, and first of all, shout out to Wyman Bob, local radio show. That this is where the clip was from. And, they were interviewing Jordan Babineau. So I just want to shout out to Wyman Bob. And so, it just got me thinking about, Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll was fired, right? He was fired because, some say he couldn't beat the Shanahan system. Some people say that, his defense wasn't, performing anymore. But right now, like just listening to that, it got me thinking, did Pete Carroll have those internal locker room champions, right? To beat the drum, as Jordan Babineau said. And, did he have those players that could pass down the message and hold each other accountable? Because at the end of the day, you can scheme everything up, you can do anything, but at the end of the day, players have to go out there and they have to perform. And I was just looking at this, and I found this other clip and from KJ Wright, and he was talking about player to player accountability, right, and what that looks like, and how the Pete Carroll system and the players in the Legion of Boom era, held each other accountable. So I want you to listen to also, cut number 1. So, and where KJ Wright kind of talks about some of those, that accountability system. And I just want to get your take on, your thoughts on, hey, did we maybe, misjudge Pete Carroll's poor performance? Did we think that he had good personnel when he didn't? So, but first of all, let's listen to this clip. So let's play cut number 1.
It wasn't necessarily Pete Carroll that would tell guys not to do things. Help us understand who kept that accountability.
It's the locker room. The locker room holds each other in check. A Doug Baldwin will hold me in check. It's a prime example I always give. Guys held Richard Sherman in check, brother to brother, man to man. Did anybody say anything to this guy today is my question. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. So to answer your question, Coach Carroll, he sets what should be done. We execute and we come through and say, this is how we're going to do it as a football team. This is how we're going to do it when we step in between these white lines and when we decide to go home. We do this between one another. Mm-hmm. And so how you open this statement, player to player accountability, wasn't good enough. It was done on a small scale, but not done good enough.
It wasn't necessary.
All right. Your thoughts, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to Legion of Boom days when the Seahawks were really, really in their prime, a feared team. That locker room was different. We had a lot of alpha players in that locker room that wanted to win. We're all on the same page and had this. They were all collectively chasing the same thing together, right? And this year, and this time, where we are today, I don't. You look at a roster all over, right? I don't see a player that has that same type of alpha leader in them, you know? And I think, and it could be because we're young. It could be because we're a young team and some of these younger guys are kind of trying to get their own footing, get settled in the league, create a name for themselves before they kind of chase that goal of winning the Super Bowl, becoming a great team. So I do think what we're missing today is a player that has that alpha mentality and is ready to take control of the locker room and establish a locker room culture, because obviously the coaches can do their jobs, but it is a matter of creating a locker room of guys that can work together and want to achieve something together. And you see that with any team that gets to the top. You see it with the Kansas City Chiefs today. They're all on the same page, you know. Adversity, they're still together. They're going to continue to be the same team they are. And so I think we have got to find that as Seahawks, you know.
Yeah. Shout out to the All Day podcast. KJ Wright's old podcast, and where I got this clip from. Currently, led by Lofa and the crew. So shout out to that podcast. But yeah, man, I definitely agree with you. At the end of the day, it comes down to players, and seriously, I think I've overrated the Seahawks roster. I think we have good players, maybe not great players. Maybe I would say, for example, let me ask you this question, Tommy. If you had a company, right? If you had a company of 100 people and you wanted to bring one Seahawks player on this team to and, get them, help them, start the work the same day and get them motivated to do the work, who would that Seahawks player be? Because I don't know anybody on the Seahawks team that I think that could give that speech today.
Yeah, I mean, there is a player that I have in my mind that I hope can continue to develop as a leader, and that's Devin Witherspoon. What his energy, his excitement, his motor, you know what you're getting from him, right? That's probably one of the few players on this roster that I can go into every Sunday knowing exactly what we're going to get from him in the game. Mm-hmm. And I think, that's one player that I think is going to be a cornerstone of our defense going forward, and hopefully he sticks around for a while. But what I do love his passion for the game, his energy. He's got a little dog to him, which you really want on the defensive side of the ball. That's the player I would look at.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Spoon has that energy, man. But the thing about Spoon is, I think he kind of feels he sees himself as a rookie still. He doesn't see himself as the best team. So I don't know if he kind of shies away from, talking to other people and, talking to other players, maybe like third-year players or fourth-year players, and hold them accountable. But I think as time goes, in the future, we might see him, be more vocal in the locker room.
Yeah, and I certainly hope so, because he's got all the intangibles you want. But I totally agree with you. I think it's his youth right now that is kind of holding him back from taking on that full leadership role. And so I hope that the coaches can kind of get in his ear about like, hey, you are the guy on defense. Like, you are a vocal leader. We need you to step up. We need you to hold players accountable. They're going to listen to you, and you wonder if you've got the right guys that are going to listen to him, right? Because these older vets might be like, oh, he's just second year guys. He's a young guy. Like, he doesn't know anything about the league yet. And you kind of wonder that hopefully something's going to flip there, right? And so, because he's got all the intangibles you want, but we just have to see it coming to fruition.
Nice. I totally agree. Okay, so this next segment is my favorite segment. And so for people who don't know, every Monday morning after a Seahawks game, Coach Mike McDonald puts 5 players on a sticky note, and he calls this list the Make It Right list. And these are 5 players that are in trouble and need to make it right. So now let's get down to the Make It Right list.
The Make It Right list.
We got outplayed and out executed today.
Here are 5 Seahawks who need to bounce back.
So, going to make it right and move forward.
First player on the Make It Right list is Rayshawn Jenkins. Rayshawn, Mike McDonald's not happy with your performance, man. You've been targeted 20 times and you allowed 18 receptions. You have 0 pass breakups. 0. The 2 passes were incompletions where the quarterback missed it. You've allowed 2 explosive plays of 20 yards or more. That's my first player on the Make It Right list. Rayshawn Jenkins, you need to make it right because we are depending on you in the secondary, and you're allowing almost 10 yards per reception, per Pro Football Focus. So we need you to do better. My second player on the Make It Right list is Draymond Jones. Draymond, I think this is one of the most horrible signings in the last 2 years. Draymond is getting paid $10.7 million. And he registered 17 pressures this season, 1 sack, 3 QB hits. Compare that to Leonard Floyd, man, from the 49ers. He has more pressures than Draymond Jones, 20 pressures, 3 sacks, and 5 quarterback hits. And he's getting paid almost $7 million less than Draymond Jones, which gives me to my third Seahawk on the Make It Right list, and that is John Schneider. John, as Pete Carroll used to say, Johnny, you have let us down, man. You have let us down. You paid Draymond Jones where you could just, get somebody off the street with the same production. You couldn't draft quality offensive linemen, right? This year you drafted Christian Haynes, not even playing full time. And 3 picks after Christian Haynes, the 49ers selected Dominic Pooney, who has allowed only 11 pressures and 0 sacks, right? And you had an opportunity to get offensive linemen in the free agency. The New York Giants needed a good offensive line, and they did it. They paid $9.5 million, and their offensive line has a total 24 pressures, 1 sack. That's it. Where the Seahawks have 34 pressures and 6 sacks. So Johnny, you have let us down, and I think you're on the hot seat next year. So you gotta do better. So you're on the Make It Right list. So my fourth player on the Make It Right list is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, I know you want to get paid $35 million like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, but you need to do better. 11 targets for 3 receptions, 48 yards in the biggest moments. If you want to get paid like a superstar, you got to make those catches, DK. So DK is my fourth player on the Make It Right list. So the fifth player on the Make It Right list is Geno Smith. Geno, I'm a huge supporter of you. I think if protected, you're one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. You need to do better, Geno. You need to become a better leader. You can't be putting a towel over your head when adversity hits. You need to talk to your receivers. I need to see better like vibes on the sideline. So you need to make it right. You're the fifth player on the make it right list, and that is my this week's make it right list. So Tommy, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to just kind of take it one by one here and break down how I feel. So with Dramont, first with Rayshawn Jenkins, I want to say we're about to find out what non-Rayshawn Jenkins world is like. He just got put on IR about 2 hours ago, so just got that news. So it's Kevon Wallace time for him to step up, see what he can bring to the table for us here. But in terms of what Rayshawn Jenkins was doing on the field, the first couple of weeks, I was really impressed with what he was doing. It seemed like he was very explosive. He was getting downhill. But since about week 3, I haven't seen that as much. I haven't. And so maybe that's why he's on IR now. Maybe he's playing through an injury. We don't know that. But there was definitely a difference after week 2 in my eyes from what I was watching. I just didn't see that same level of explosiveness and, getting downhill. So hopefully he gets healthy, gets back to 100%, and we can kind of see the early season Rayshawn Jenkins when he returns. Then to Dramont Jones, basically everything you said there was perfect. I think it was a disastrous contract.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of promise there because, in his last few years in Denver, he was improving. The stats were showing that his pressure weight was climbing year by year in Denver. So I think the Seahawks kind of took a gamble on a guy that could have really burst onto the scene in Seattle. And obviously he hasn't done that yet. I watched a little bit of him against San Francisco. And when he was on the edge, we want, obviously with 49ers, a lot of motions, they get outside, they run the ball outside a lot. We want him to set that edge. Well, when you set the edge, you got to extend your arms, hold that tackle in place, keep your eyes downfield. He was just kind of throwing his body into the tackles. There were times he was turned around. To me, it was a disastrous performance from Dramont Jones. I mean, Trent Williams about had his way. Trent Williams put him on the turf a couple times. It was just a forgettable game for Dramont Jones there, and he's definitely, we've got to find something there. He's got to figure something out because he is not living up to that contract. And to me, if after this season, I also believe I heard quietly that he showed up to training camp out of shape. And basically, like Mike, and this is just a rumor, so don't take it to heart. But Mike Dunn basically was saying, like, if you didn't have this much guaranteed money, we'd cut you. And
so was he the player? Like, because I heard that, I read it from Brady Henderson on ESPN talking about that. That supposed player who was about to be cut, was it Draymond Jones? I always had a hunch.
I believe. Yes. I'm under the impression, I've heard from other people as well that was the case. So and I think his performance this year is kind of showing us the same deal because training camp is very important. And if you're not getting reps like that, it's going to cause you to start the season slow. So, we'll leave it at that, but I believe that's the case. So we got to get it together. We got to get it together there. And then with John Schneider, I agree with you. I think his philosophy today, or his philosophy in the offseason, was that guards are overdrafted and overpaid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that philosophy is getting proven very wrong this season. It's pretty evident. Laken Tomlinson and Anthony Bradford are not getting it done. And that also falls on the evaluations, the entire ladder all the way up from the scouts to obviously John. They've got to evaluate interior offensive linemen better. Because I've talked to scouts around the league for other teams that have told me Anthony Bradford pre-draft was the biggest red flag they've seen. They were not sold on Anthony Bradford. Some took him off draft boards, and the Seahawks take him in the draft. So it's just, to me, it's an evaluation issue because the same issues continue to come up. And it to me, from what I'm seeing, is it's IQ. I mean, these guys, they're really struggling in pass pro. They're struggling to pick up stunts. I mean, they're struggling with just simple pass rush moves. It's technique, IQ. It's all the above. It's just been really, really brutal to watch all season long, and it's obviously a glaring issue we have. But also, I also want to give Ryan Grubb a little bit of. He's got to improve himself. I think, like I alluded to earlier, he's learning, and it's tough to make that jump from college to NFL. He's done some really good things. I don't even want to take away from a lot of good things he's done this season. But there are some things that you look back on, you're like, I don't know about that. I mean, the 4th down play against the Giants, I think we're just getting a little too cute there,
Yeah.
And then you look at this Niners game, and I like that we wanted to commit to the run more. That's going to help the offense out. It's going to help Geno out. It's going to help the receivers out. It's going to help the offensive line out. But a lot of the running concepts that we brought out against San Francisco were very vanilla. And the Niners basically had their way with it. The Niners, so they were able to really shut that down. And then Ryan Grubb at times will abandon the run when it's not going and just pass the ball. Hence why Geno has got the most passing yards in the league right now, most pass attempts in the league right now. We're just passing the ball. And I think all of that, you put that together, I mean, it goes with the pressure rate that we're allowing because they're in pass pro so much. And when we're passing a lot, the defensive linemen kind of already know what they're doing. They're pinning their ears back. They can be a little bit undisciplined. They can. And so all of this put together is we've got to just find a better balance on offense. We've obviously have 2 really good running backs. We've got to find a way. We just have to find a way, and then with DK, I agree slightly. I do have some disagreements. I think he's been extremely productive this season. He's on his pace for his best season to his career right now. But again, I think we're seeing the same issues that we've seen his entire career. He's letting his emotions get the best of him on the field, and it's affecting his play. And so, obviously, if the 49ers secondary, they know DK. They play him 2 times a year. You talk to him, he's going to talk back. You can get into his head. Kyle Shanahan said it after the game last year, San Francisco last season.
Yeah,
they know that. So they he's just got to reel it in there. And I don't want to take it away because he should have had a 60-yard touchdown catch. Kenneth Walker had that illegal shift. He wasn't set. So, their opportunities were there. And he almost had the touchdown there before halftime. Foot was just out of bounds. So it's all right there. So I don't want to take away, but we really have to reel it in with his emotions. I like passion. I want you to be passionate. I want you to win. I want you to be successful. But you just got to reel it in and not let it affect your play. And we keep seeing it. And then with Geno.
Question. Would you, before we get to Geno, would you pay DK Metcalf $35 million next year?
I love DK. I wouldn't. Yeah. I think receivers are too replaceable nowadays. You need a guy like DK. You do. You need a true number 1 X receiver. But I think there's just so many. Look at every draft class. You're seeing at least 6 to 7 star receivers come out every year pre-draft, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't. I think that's going to tie you up too much, especially with the holes we have in our roster. It's a tough decision. If we had a great offensive line with a bunch of guys on rookie deals, I think it's different. But with where our roster currently is, I don't think you can. I just think it'll tie you up too much. Yeah. Unfortunately, I love DK the player. He's a fantastic player. He's a freak of nature. But I
agree. I think they're a dependent player, right? Like without protection, without solidifying the trenches, they're not going to have any production.
Absolutely. So that's my take on it, and I hope he continues to have a career this year. With Geno, it's hard for me to blame Geno right now. One thing I would like him to do is kind of quiet down on the interceptions. Now, some were his problem.
I agree. Like, I'm not a hater, but that's what the number one thing that haters say. They say 6 interceptions is too much.
It is. And obviously the second one to DK, when he was targeting DK was drifting a little too far. He was. That one's on DK, in my opinion. The first pick to Mustafa was Geno's fault. The second, the one that was targeting DK across the middle, no, that's not his fault. DK's got to hold that line on that route. He's big enough. He's got to do that. But and I think what I was alluding to earlier is the lack of run game isn't helping him either. I think, and obviously we're on our 3rd right tackle, and Stone Forsythe has been a revolving door this season, and so it's tough. I think he's being dealt a really tough hand right now. I think he's doing well for what he can. I think he's having a great season. I think there's just a lot of other factors that are affecting him and how successful he can be. Yeah. So I don't want to put too much on Geno. I think he's having a great season, but I will say, like I said earlier, I am disappointed to see how Nick Bosa's just presence on the field got to
Yeah.
him. You know, that is an entirely different thing if he's getting to every play, but like there were just times he wasn't getting there and it still
Exactly.
seemed like he was affected. So I'd really liked him to. I think he was lacking a bit of poise against San
Yeah.
Francisco, and so I hope we could turn it around, and I think definitely dive more into how that's an opportunity when we start talking about this upcoming week.
Let me ask you the same question I asked about DK. Would you pay Geno Smith $50 million?
Yeah, I would, but not on a long-term deal. Not on a
Yeah.
long-term deal. I would front load it. If you can, I would front load it. First 2 years, pay him big, because you do your scouting of draft classes, and you also do your scouting of potential free agents, and it's often that a good quarterback's not hitting the free agent market. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go find one in the draft. Are the Seahawks in a position to get a high pick for a quarterback? I don't see it. I don't see it. So, and I don't love the quarterbacks in this draft class anyway. Then you look at next year's draft class. We'll see what the quarterbacks present themselves then. But I think 2027 is the year to look at for a quarterback replacement for Seattle. That's going to be a good quarterback class. I can tell from just the freshmen that have been playing right now.
That's the Arch Manning year, right?
So I would.
Yeah.
Next, not this upcoming draft, the year after that will be Arch Manning, but the year after, in 27, you're going to have Lagway and Raiola and all those budding freshmen right now, which I think are going to be really good players. So.
I like Raiola, man. It's like having a Mahomes light.
Truly. And so if he can come to the NFL and play like Mahomes, by all means, let's do it. Let's, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But I'd front load it. I wouldn't give them. I wouldn't spread it out. I would just, let's give you $50 million this year if we have to, and then we'll worry about it after that. Because then after the year's up, then you can get a little more flexible.
I agree with you, man. I think, man, without a quarterback in this league, you know how it goes. You're not.
Yeah.
you're gonna have some painful times, man. And a lot of people think Sam Howell is the answer, and I know you have a lot of connections with scouts and and a lot of people in the league. Tommy, can you talk about Sam Howell? Who is Sam Howell?
Yeah, Sam Howell to me is a little bit. What's the best way to say it? Let's dumb it down. He's an Aldi version Baker Mayfield. That's what I would do. He's just like he's a dumbed down Baker Mayfield. He's got a lot of talent. He does. We actually saw it when he came to Seattle, right? Or we came to Seattle with Washington, I should say. And he's a talented player that I think struggles with accuracy and just processing. And there's a lot of potential there, and I love the trade, to be honest with you, because he's younger than a lot of the quarterbacks that came out of this draft class. And I think everyone knew at the time that John Schneider really did like Sam Howell when he was coming out. So, and Washington at the time with the poor O-line wasn't exactly the most promising place to develop a quarterback, which they've done a great job this year addressing the line and helping the quarterback out. Jaden Daniels having a great season, but they. So it's a low risk, high reward type deal. John wanted to see if he had what he liked in the pre-draft process, and maybe it was a Washington problem. And I do think you just got to trust what you're seeing at practice. If Sam Howell was out playing Geno, then I think Sam Howell would play. And I think there's just some turnover issues with Sam that we really can't afford right now to move on. But I think he's a guy that could stick around with us for a little bit. He's obviously still on his rookie deal, so you're not going to be paying him much. So and maybe he develops over time. I think you ride with Geno, and maybe if Sam Howell does turn into the prospect that some thought he was going to be down the line, then you've got your answer. But I think it's a nice development piece. I don't expect to see him anytime soon, though, on the field bearing an injury.
All right. Okay, so that I agree with you. One more thing that I want to ask you before we get to the Seahawks core segment is, you talked about the running game, and I know Ryan Grubb loves to do a lot of moving the guards and the tackles, doing the pin and pull and all that. Is he limited by less athletic guys on the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're evaluating offensive linemen for your roster, you're looking for the two big things you're looking for are like, well, one is versatility, and two is athleticism, and a lot of these great offensive linemen in the league are fantastic athletes. Maybe the casual fan might not even really put it together because they're 6'5", 330-pound people, but they are phenomenal athletes. And and you don't want stiff guys. You don't want stiff guys because that's going to limit them and what they can do. And so I do think we're struggling with it. I don't like, for example, I mean, I'm just going to keep picking on Anthony Bradford, but he's a stiff guy. He can get you north and south, but you start moving around, you need to move laterally. That's where he really struggles, and we're seeing it. Yeah. And so these defensive coordinators here are like, oh, we're going to take the end over Forsyth, bring him out wide. We're going to make Forsyth have to get out there because we don't even think Forsyth can do that, right? And so we're going to try to get him out there. And then what that's going to do is put Anthony Bradford on an island. And that's going to force him to have to move laterally against a potentially good pass rushing 3-tech. And so it is a tough situation, and teams are starting to figure it out. And we really need to get some answers there. And I don't know if we're going to have any answers this year. I really like Christian Haynes coming out. Was really high on him as a prospect. I'd love to see him maybe get a start and play the entire game and evaluate him over the course of an entire game, because we haven't seen that yet. And I'd really like to see that because he's got some nasty to him. He really does. And so I'd like to see what he might bring to the table.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the Make or Right list for today. And now we're going to get to the Seahawks core, which is the 6 top players in the Seahawks that you think this week, based on this week's performance, and the one centerpiece player that you would never trade, regardless of. I know everybody's tradable, but that you would need like a huge haul for, right? And
absolutely.
So yeah. So let's hear your Seahawks score.
So we're going to start from number 6. We're going to move all the way down to that centerpiece. So at number 6, I've got Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he had a phenomenal game this week out of the slot. The Niners they're bottom 10 in covering slot receivers, and Jason's been really productive against teams that have done that, such as the Patriots and the Dolphins this year. So he's done a great job, obviously, still on his rookie deal. And just the growth potential he has, like as a player. He's such a smooth mover. His ball skills are legit. His body control. He's a phenomenal player. I think he's got more to his game than we've seen so far in his career. And I really think as time goes on, and we're going to kind of see that open up a little bit more, because he's a special player. Not a lot of players are similar to him with the way he's a balanced runner. It's impressive. And he's a bigger guy than people give him credit for. He's got some thickness to him. So I think we can get a little bit after the catch from him as well. So moving on, number 5. And I've actually got 2 players. The next 2 players here didn't actually play this week, but they're on this list because we really could have used them this week. And I've got Tariq Woolen. Our corner depth right now is not good. And Tariq Woolen is a special player. Also, he's making under $1 million on that cap hit. Crazy. So, where do I begin? He's a freak athlete. He's truly a one-of-one player. There's nobody in the league like him. He's lengthy. You've got the length you want. He's a matchup nightmare. He's a matchup nightmare for receivers. Tackling is its own conversation. I love corners that can tackle. Tariq Woolen is not a great tackler, but what he offers in coverage outweighs everything else to me. I mean, I think we're looking at potentially his best season of his career right now. He's been completely shut down. And so we really missed him against the 49ers this past week. And I think a player we should definitely keep around because it's a valuable position as well. Moving on to number 4, Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy is a player we really need to get back. When he went down, our run defense hit a wall that we haven't seen. The fact that, to me, where we were able to get him was phenomenal in the draft. We were lucky because guys like that are so rare. Interior D linemen that have an extremely high motor, use leverage so well, and just can hold. They can hold their own against double teams. They're rare, And the fact that we have him on our team, I feel really lucky, and we really could have used him this week because the Niners definitely had their way, especially on the interior. And our D-line depth isn't that great either right now. So that's a player that I think is going to become one of the centerpieces of our defense in the upcoming years. He is really, really going to come into his own. I definitely see it. And his motor he's going to be a fan favorite for sure. Number 3, Boye Mafe. Boye Mafe has quietly had a career year for himself. He's been phenomenal. Another freak athlete, long, lengthy. He's been productive this season. He's been getting a lot of pressures. I mean, you just watch the games. He is consistently in the backfield. Another young player on a rookie deal that I hope that we can keep around because he continues to get better year by year. There was a play. He didn't finish the tackle, but on Debo's long touchdown, the first touchdown of the game there. Did you see? That dude was moving.
Yeah, he was fast.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to catch Debo Samuel who's got momentum like that. But for him to get that close, freaky. That just tells you the type of athlete he is out there. Yeah. And so if he can do that to Debo, what is he going to do to tackles when he gets a good jump there? I mean, I think he's still working back from getting healthy and stuff. So hopefully we can, once he gets back to full, he's going to be back to who he was in the early part of the season there. Number 1, Charles Cross. Cornerstone. The Seahawks have their cornerstone left tackle. They do. This is his best season to date. And I want to point out, I don't think a lot of players played well against San Francisco. Charles Cross did. Yeah, he had a 82.8 PFF grade, which is second among left tackles in the entire NFL this past week against San Francisco. Wow. I mean, he's allowed 1 sack and 307 pass blocking snaps. Obviously, one of the most valuable positions on the football field. And he's still a growing player. He's 23 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy we got to make sure he is a Seahawk for as long as possible because this is the true bright spot of our offensive line this year. You can point a lot of fingers, but Charles Cross is not one you can point one at. He has been phenomenal all season and had a great game against San Francisco, which is exactly what we want. And then the centerpiece, the most untouchable player, I think we know where this is going, Devin Witherspoon. I mean, this guy, he's everything you want in a corner. He's like a dream corner. Like, there's not a lot of players like Devin Witherspoon at the cornerback position. This guy's got some of the best instincts I've ever seen. He's special from an instinctual standpoint. He plays with energy, a lot of energy. He's like a firecracker out there. He's having fun. He's a leader. He's working towards it. We can see it. He plays with such an edge. I mean, people are going to give him a lot of crap about the David Montgomery play where he came in and David just put him in the turf. How many corners are you seeing coming up to try to make a hit like that? I loved it. It's going to happen. It's the NFL, right? It is. It's going to happen. It's the NFL. I love that. I love having my cornerbacks come in and make hits like that. And he's been shut down all year. Brock Purdy was not. If you go watch the film, Brock Purdy was not throwing at Devin Witherspoon at all. I mean, he was locked. He was holding it down, and obviously position of value. So Devin Witherspoon's a special player, and I personally hope he's a Seahawk for life.
Yeah. Nice, man. Hey, I love your list, man. I love your list. I agree with your centerpiece. I think for me, trading Devin Witherspoon would be very hard. Maybe I don't know, a couple of first round. This guy is a unicorn. Yeah, this guy is a unicorn. And, that's the other issue is you have John Schneider has a lot of decisions to make, man, next year. Like, a lot of people are going to want to get paid. A lot of really good players, especially the 2022 class, right? That great 2022 class, Tariq Woolen, Charles Cross, and Boye Mafe. It's going to be tough, man. But I think, they have some money on the salary cap. They're still paying Jamal. They're still paying Quandre. They'll probably cut Draymond. So some money might open up. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously it's a tough part about being a GM. You're going to have to make some tough decisions and sacrifices on the roster, and you're going to have to do bargain hunting again. I mean, that's what separates the great teams from the good teams. Is these great teams do find great bargains. And so they're able to fill out holes in the roster on low contracts, and these guys are productive. So, we got to trust the front office to do that. But I think, with that draft class, it's going to lead with Charles Cross. Like that's that is the guy you have to lock up right away. I mean, we don't need with where the offensive line's at. We've got a special player there. We've got to lock him up right away, and then you start evaluating after that. And we're going to learn throughout the season, what Boye Mafe becomes, because he's shown flashes of becoming a really good player. And we know Tariq Woolen is. Can he finish off the season strong with what we were seeing, or is he going to kind of go back to what it was last season? And so we're gonna. And I don't think Tariq went out a terrible season last year, but with what he might come out to get paid, you're going to want great, not good. So there's going to be tough decisions. There is, and it'll be interesting. We're going to have to draft well, continue to draft well, and just evaluate the players as the season goes on, and hopefully the decisions become more clear.
Yeah, man, let's hope so. John Schneider's on my make it right list, so he's got to make it right. All right. So let's wrap it up. And so the Seahawks are playing the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday, and man, I think they blew out the Panthers, man. They crazy game there. Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson. We really need Byron Murphy back. So hopefully we get him back. Let's get your game preview, Tommy, and your predictions for the next game.
Yeah, so my game preview. This is a massive game for the Seahawks here. This to me is a turning point game. They've got a really, really tough schedule coming up. So this is a turning point game. They're on the road. It's going to be tough. The matchup to me we're going to have to figure out is Atlanta's run game versus our run defense. I mean, Atlanta just had their way with Carolina, and Carolina's not a great run defense, but we've allowed we are 28th. We are bottom 4 of rush yards total allowed on the season. Something's going to have to give there, because what I'm worried about right now is we're going to walk into Atlanta, and Atlanta's going to run the football at will, kind of like what the Giants did. Control time of possession. Defense is getting worn out all game, and they're just going to walk out, take care of business, and get a win. Now, on the other hand, for Seattle, here's the opportunity they have. Atlanta has struggled so mightily this year to get pressures. They probably have the worst pass rush in the entire league. So there's an opportunity for this offensive line to kind of a get right game. Give Geno time, let our receivers do work, establish a run game. Atlanta's D-line has not been good. And that's why everyone's like, why didn't they take Dallas Turner? Why didn't they take Dallas Turner? Like, they had it right there. They'd be such a great team. I'm a little worried about what Atlanta could offer in a play action type game, especially with Kyle Pitts. I hope, I'm not waking up Monday right, but I think this is a game where Kyle Pitts could really, really pop off because I think Atlanta could get the run game going and then start to bring that into play action. And I think Kyle Pitts is a matchup we haven't seen yet from a tight end. And I think I'm a little worried about that one. I am. So, and of course, Atlanta's pass defense they're top 10. They're top 10 in pass yards allowed this year. So it's solid. So it's just going to be a matter of Geno making plays. I mean, there is a path for us to win. We're going to have to stop the run, though, because if Atlanta takes the time of possession, runs the ball at will, is able to control, stay ahead of schedule, they're going to win this football game. They are. And so it's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm excited. I really am excited to see it. This is a big, big test for Seattle. They can really rise up here, answer a lot of questions, and prove some doubters wrong, though.
All right. And your predictions?
Unfortunately, I've got Atlanta winning 31-27 this weekend. I think Seattle's going to be able to score, but ultimately I haven't seen it from the run defense, and I can't honestly predict that it's just going to magically improve against an elite rushing attack this week. But I hope I'm wrong.
Me too, man. I hope you're wrong. So I'm different. I think the Seahawks win this game 24-20. I think Byron Murphy gets back and, kind of like helps with that run defense. And they get some more rotations. They just got one new defensive tackle from the Jaguars, who's been quietly having a good season. So I think they bring him in the rotation as well. I think Geno has a big game because he's going to have time to throw, and the receivers are going to get open. And I think it's going to be, the only thing I worry about is a 10 a.m. start because when you're traveling, you always have a disadvantage. So that's why I think it's going to be like maybe a relatively not super high scoring. So maybe 24-20. So that's my prediction of the week. And yeah, what do you think?
Right. I like your prediction. I hope you're right. But I agree though. I think Gino's got an opportunity this week though. Gino's got a big opportunity this week with the receivers.
Let's keep a record, man, for the entire season. So me against you. We'll see.
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys for listening to the new show. This is the first episode. It will come. You'll see it every week. And looking forward to providing you guys more insights. And hope you guys have a great day. So, 12th man out, man. Have a good day.